Good evening and welcome to yet another session of Information Bureau Integrated COVID Series conducted by Government Medical College, Kozhikode. Today, we are extremely lucky to have with us Dr. Aparna ma'am, Assistant Professor of Pathology. Welcome, ma'am. Today's session will be on pathogenesis and autopsy finding. Thank you and over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Rishika, and thank you all for giving me this opportunity to share a few facts about SARS-CoV virus infection that is going on as a pandemic all around the globe now. So, coming to pathogenesis, this is just like any other viral infection, and I think you would have had a class on the structure of this virus. So the spike protein is the most important for entry of virus into the human cell. So before this entry, the spike protein needs to be primed by host cell responses. So the initiation and spread of disease into the host cells depends upon this priming by a specific protease, the transmembrane protease serine type 2, or it's called the TMPR SS2. And this spike protein actually has two subunits, the S1 and S2 subunits. Of this, the S1 is important for attachment of the virus to the receptor. The receptor for SARS-CoV-2 is ACE, angiotensin converting enzyme. That is a receptor. So the cells which have more of this angiotensin converting enzyme get infected very fast. So, and this S2 subunit of spike protein is important for fusion of the membrane of the virus and the membrane of the host cell. So this priming is by TMPRSS2. And this priming occurs by cleavage at a specific point of this spike protein. So here is the SARS-CoV virus, the entire virus, the receptor, which is ACE2. This is the plasma membrane of the host cell, and the viral membrane fuses with the plasma membrane of the host cell and releases the virion or the viral RNA into the host cell. And what happens after this RNA release? There is translation of proteins which are needed for the replication of the virus. And after that, the RNA replicates. The RNA is the sense RNA, a positive strand RNA. So it replicates first. It replicates into the negative strand of the antisense strand, and then it undergoes replication. Also, parts of it which are to form the protein, the different proteins of the virus are also formed, and then the replication occurs in the reverse way. That is, the positive strand, the actual RNA of the virus, sense RNA is formed, the proteins are formed. The signals come from the nucleus of the cell too, and then this is all packed into the Golgi, the endoplasmic reticulum. Then it goes inside the endosome and this fuses with the host cell membrane, and the virions are released into the extracellular space. So thousands and thousands of virions are formed. And also one more thing is that the affinity with which the virus attaches to the ACE, that is found more in the respiratory tract. So that is why I think the respiratory tract gets involved. Also, the aerosol inhalation occurs into the respiratory tract. So that is why the respiratory epithelial cells are infected more. And the respiratory epithelial cells means all the cells, the entire respiratory, from the nasopharynx, the nose, nasopharynx, the bronchi, the trachea, the bronchus, all these cells get infected up to the alveolar epithelial cells, that is the AEC, type 2 pneumocytes. And this is able to assist the coronavirus replication. That is why the virus replicates more in the lung. And what about other tissues? Extrapulmonary tissues such as heart, kidney, endothelium, and intestine also express a large number of ACE, which is the receptor for SARS-CoV-2. And so these organs are also affected more in this infection. So what happens? Summarizing, virus enters via the aerosols, binds to the host cell, conformational changes in the spike protein penetrate the plasma membrane of the host cell, goes inside with the help of this S2 subunit. The viral nucleocapsid enters into the host cell with release of viral contents, viral RNA replication, translation of proteins, biosynthesis of proteins, assembly of these viral particles, release of the viral particles into the extracellular space through the Golgi and endoplasmic reticulum. And what does the body do whenever there is an infection? The body tries to get rid of this infection, isn't it? So it mounts an immune response against this infection. So as occurs with all viral infection, which is the most important cell in the innate and adaptive immunity? That is the cytotoxic T cell, T lymphocytes, CD8 positive cytotoxic T lymphocytes. So before these lymphocytes come into play, what should be done? The antigen should be presented to the immune cell. So which molecule presents this antigen? That is the major histocompatibility complex. In the case of viral infection, the antigen is presented in association with class 1 MHC. And this is recognized by the virus-specific CD8 positive cytotoxic T lymphocytes. And this Th1 mediated immune response plays a predominant role in adaptive immunity against viral infections. So what do these CD8 positive cytotoxic T lymphocytes do? They are involved in the direct killing of the virus infected cells by secreting molecules such as granzymes, perforin, interferon gamma, etc. You might have already learned in your immunology classes. And the CD4 helper T cells facilitate the adaptive response by assisting these cytotoxic T lymphocytes. So once inside the endosome, there is something called pathogen-associated molecular patterns. These are microbial structures, pathogen-associated molecular patterns. These are recognized by specific pattern recognition peptides which are present in the cell. These include toll-like receptors, cytosolic RNA sensor, secretory type pattern recognition receptors, etc. So these will recognize the pathogen-associated molecular patterns, which are parts of the microbe. And this is somewhat complicated, but just remember that there are different steps by which this immune response is initiated and it increases. So adapter proteins like mitochondrial antiviral signaling protein, etc. are recruited, and downstream molecules like MYD88 are activated. And this further activates transcription factors like NFKB and interferon regulatory factor, helps in nuclear translocation. And in the nuclei, these transcription factors induce production of interferons, especially type 1 interferon alpha beta, and a lot of other pro-inflammatory cytokines. Notable among these is interleukin 6. So very quick and important immune response takes place. There is a cascade of signaling events takes place, and in the end, you have a lot of interferons and other pro-inflammatory cytokines, especially interleukin 6. So you've been hearing about something called cytokine storm. Cytokine storm, what is it? It is a dysregulated and excessive cytokine release. Dysregulated and excessive cytokine release, which is more than what is needed to ward off the organism. So these include pro-inflammatory cytokines, like I told you, chemokines, which are secreted from these two secreted from the immune effector cells. And these are responsible for commencing of the viral sepsis, followed by lung injury of the lung, and also in the other organs. But mainly you have lung injury in SARS-CoV virus 2 infection. And there is a violent attack on the human body by this immune response. And what does that produce? It produces an acute respiratory distress syndrome, shock, septic shock, multiple organ failure. All this is related to the excessive and dysregulated immune response, which is called the cytokine storm. And what happens if this cytokine storm persists? All these immune cells, they'll undergo necrosis or apoptosis. And this leads to lymphopenia, so that the body cannot further mount an immune response against the infections. So that is what happens. So dysregulated and excessive immune response, which is called the cytokine storm. So this is just a pictorial representation. The virus enters the lung, replicates, then the antigen presenting cell will present it to the immune cell, and a lot of cytokines are produced. Then you have the cellular immunity, which I told you about, the cytotoxic T lymphocytes helped by the CD4 T cells. CD4 T cells produce cytokines, and there is a cytokine storm, which may be called as an hyperinflammation, which leads to tissue damage. Also, there is evolving humoral immunity, which is mediated by the B cell. So that does not last long in case of COVID-19, because as you know, the patients are getting reinfected after some 4 or 5 months. It may be due to changes in the virus, or it may be due to waning immunity. So B cell mediated humoral immune response, it plays a protective role by producing neutralizing antibodies, also impedes the reinfection. You won't get a reinfection very soon. That will take some time for the body to get reinfected if it comes in contact with the virus. So, and there are some other events also taking place. We were talking mainly about the lung and in general about the immune response. So this is what happens in the host cell. We already told about the virus entry and the direct cytotoxic effect of the virus, the direct killing of the cells by the virus. Then there is dysregulation of the renin, angiotensin, and aldosterone system. Because this ACE2 is down-regulated by the virus. So you have this tissue injury or remodeling, inflammation, vasoconstriction, increased vascular permeability, etc., because of dysregulation of the renin-angiotensin system. Then I told you another cell which can be infected and which has a lot of AC which acts as a receptor is endothelial cell. So there is endothelial cell damage and resulting endothelial inflammation, which is called an endotheliitis, and there is endothelial cell damage, apoptosis of the endothelial cells, and that leads to a prothrombotic state. And there is, and the fourth thing which we already discussed is a dysregulated immune response, which leads to T cell lymphopenia, necrosis and apoptosis of the T cells, which have to react against the virus, inhibition of signaling by SARS-CoV-2, hyperactive innate immunity, and cytokine release syndrome or the cytokine storm. And what happens inside the vessel? You get, I told you there will be because of this endothelial cell damage, there is a prothrombotic state, and you get a lot of microthrombi inside the blood vessels, which leads to ischemia and tissue necrosis in all organs. And there is microvascular injury. And these microthrombi together lead to tissue hypoxia, ischemia, necrosis of tissue. So all these are the events that are happening in COVID-19 pathogenesis. So viral entry, direct killing of the cells by the virus, dysregulation of the renin-angiotensin system, endothelial cell damage and thromboinflammation, which leads to microthrombi and ischemia, hypoxia, and necrosis of the tissue, and dysregulated immune response, which also leads to tissue damage in the form of ARDS, shock, multiple organ failure, etc. So, first there is a pulmonary phase in which the virus enters the body and there is a host response. Here we have ACE2 deficiency and dysregulated RAS system. And in this phase, we have pneumonia and ARDS. Then we have the pro-inflammatory phase in which we have a lot of cytokines and pro-inflammatory mediators released. And this leads to severe systemic inflammation, tissue damage, acute lung injury, and cytokine storm. And there is the prothrombotic phase in which there is a host response which leads to endothelial cell damage, microvascular damage, microthrombi in the circulation, coagulopathy. Because of this prothrombotic state, we have coagulopathy, something like a DIC, disseminated intravascular coagulation. We have prolonged PT, APTT, you have thrombocytopenia, etc. And this leads to multiple organ failure. So along with all this, there is also a state of insulin resistance and elevated plasma glucose levels with this increased expression of ACE2 in the lung epithelial cells. And this acts as a risk factor for morbidity and mortality in patients with SARS-CoV-2 infection. So you might have heard that patients with other comorbidities are more at risk for severe disease. So that is patients with diabetes, patients with a chronic kidney disease, patients with chronic liver disease, etc. These kind of patients, especially diabetics, they have a higher chance of severe infection that may be because of this insulin resistance and elevated plasma glucose levels that may be contributing to it. So now I'll just tell you a few autopsy findings in patients with, that is what we pathologists are concerned about, apart from this pathogenesis. So this was a case that we had here, a postmortem case of a 75-year-old male who was admitted in our hospital. He was suffering from diabetes and chronic kidney disease. He died of respiratory failure. And this is the lung from the patient. So you can see the alveolar spaces. And are they all normal? No. Some of these spaces are filled with fluid. You can see this light pink color, and the white is air. Some of the alveoli are filled with air. Others are filled with this proteinaceous fluid. This is a low power view of the lung. As we go higher, what can you see? Is this normal? What is this pink thing lining the alveoli? Pink thing. Actually, you should get pneumocytes, which are lining the alveoli. Here we are seeing some pink material, which is called the hyaline membrane. This is nothing but cell debris, proteins, surfactant. All of this put together forms this hyaline membrane so that there will be no respiratory air exchange occurring through the alveolar membrane. So this leads to hypoxia. I'll show you some other pictures. This higher power view where you can see this hyaline membrane very clearly. See, we are not seeing any pneumocytes in this alveolus or in this. Here there is some inflammation in the septa. This is another area where you can see the type 2 pneumocytes. See some cells lining the alveolar spaces. Then there is intense inflammation in the alveolar septae. Also, we had inflammation in the bronchi, inside the bronchus. See the lining of the bronchus here and the inflammatory cells within the bronchus. So there is pneumonia. Pneumonia means inflammation in the lung parenchyma, and then you have this hyaline membrane. So this is a case of severe respiratory infection, diffuse alveolar damage with hyaline membrane formation. And one more finding that we could see here was, this is the lung tissue. You can see the proteinaceous fluid inside many of the alveoli. And what is this thing? This is a vessel. And what is inside the vessel? That is a thrombus, microthrombus. See, it is attached to the vessel wall at this point. So that is a thrombus occurring within the, this is what I told you about endothelial damage, microthrombi formation. In this case, we found microthrombi only in the lung tissue that was submitted. The other tissues like kidney, liver, etc., did not show microthrombi. Maybe there would have been, but for the tissue submitted to us, did not show. And so what are the findings in this particular case? We saw interstitial inflammation, there were hemorrhages, and microthrombi, hyaline, so sorry, it's not thrombi, hyaline membrane, diffuse alveolar damage, bronchial inflammatory infiltrates. Then in the heart, so those lung findings were specific to this case. Other findings in other cases of COVID that have been reported include in the heart, you can get microthrombi in the microcirculation, and which can lead to myocardial ischemia. And another finding that has been reported is myocarditis, inflammation of the myocardium, which may lead to sudden death. Then in the kidney, there can be acute tubular injury, direct ischemia to the tubular epithelial cells, and also there can be the infection of the cells, infection-mediated damage to the cells, or cytokine-mediated injury to the tubular epithelial cells. In the CNS, you can get parenchymal hemorrhages, again microthrombi. And autopsy in the lung, already I've shown you the case, which was from our own hospital, included alveolar injury, interstitial inflammation, acute interstitial pneumonia, diffuse alveolar damage, and thrombosis in the microvasculature, also hemorrhages. So in this picture, I just put it, somebody will be dealing about the clinical aspects of this, but this picture links the pathogenesis and the pharmacology, the drugs which are used against a SARS-CoV virus. What do these particular drugs do? The anti-spike protein, where do we get it from? The convalescent serum, that's why convalescent serum is used. So that is used to block the spike protein. Then cleavage of S. So at each step of the pathogenesis, we can intervene. We are trying to intervene, and we are learning more and more about it with each passing day, and hope we'll be able to save more and more lives by linking the pharmacology or a drug therapy or management to the pathogenesis of the disease. So blockage of replication, boosters of innate immunity. So we are using multiple drugs. We are trying out because this is happening for the first time in the world. So the entire humanity is trying towards suppressing this pandemic. So stay safe and stay strong. Thank you for your patient listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for sparing your time and taking that wonderful class. It was very informative and very helpful. So that is the end of today's session. Thank you.
Thank you.